where Dennis was, looks behind it, looks all around it. Dennis is gone. Other kids haven't seen him. They don't know where he went. So there's like a trail just beyond where this open field was. And Dennis's father, so the only way he could have gone, only place he could have gone was like down this track. So Dennis's father is like a military guy. He's in pretty good shape. He just takes off on a dead sprint for 2 miles down this track, calling Dennis's name. Dennis, where the fuck are you? Trying to find his son. Like starts panicking.
That's like my worst case scenario with my kids.
Right. So back to the Key family now. This is a couple of hours later, hour and a half or so later. The Key family are sitting around this place waiting for the bear to come through. When they hear this, what the Key father describes as a sickening scream, like this blood-curdling scream that just tears off, through the forest. They look up to the, direction where the scream came from, and they see what the young kid looks around first and sees it, and he says, "Look, Dad, it's a bear." The father looks around and says, "No, it's not a bear. I think it's a man." And so how do you confuse those two? Like, that's pretty different, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I guess an upright walking bear, maybe,
right.
But that's hairy
like a
AF.
Bigfoot?
It's definitely more Bigfoot.
So they describe it as basically what looks like a Bigfoot, a big, hairy man. The father said it was moving oddly, but he was pretty sure it was a man. It was walking upright. And it was either wearing fur or it was either covered in fur. It was kind of an odd thing. He thought it was maybe wearing a fur.
Yeah, because someone in the middle of the forest is wearing fur.
In the Smoky Mountains. Like in the summer. It's fucking hot.
Right.
They can't find Dennis. He's gone. The father comes back. He tells the grandpa, go and get the rangers. Send for help. Something's gone very wrong here. So they do that. Big fucking search kicks off.
Bad weather immediately?
Well, yeah, there's a thing, yeah. So another consistent thing that happens with Missing 411, it just starts pissing rain all of a sudden. Just raining cats and
right
dogs.
after the incident.
Yeah, as soon as it happens. Makes the search, that much more difficult. Dogs are out there trying to find, they can't find a scent or whatever. So later that afternoon, after the search is well underway, the Key family are home now, and they'll see on the news missing kid, Dennis Martin. And the father kind of puts two and two together. Hey, we were in a fairly close spot to that. We should probably call in and tell them what we saw. So they call the rangers, the park management, and say, hey, we saw this guy walking through the forest. We heard this scream. I'm happy to come out right now and I'll show you exactly where it is. The park rangers were really weird about this. They went, no, don't come out here. We'll come to you and we'll just take a statement. So
that's weird.
So Daddy Key is like, okay, I mean, I'm happy to go out there. I'll show you exactly where it is. Like, I remember, like back of my hand, I remember where it is. They said, no, we'll send a guy out. So they send a guy out and he takes a statement, and that's the last he kind of hears about it, which is really odd. So as you would, like, if it was my kids, I'd be there. I would not leave the fucking area. So same thing with Mr. Martin stays there. Just, racked with panic, can't find his son. He even goes so far as to grab a shovel from his truck and he digs up, like fully digs out, uproots the bush that Dennis was behind. So Dennis's dad is panicking, but he stays there. He wants to find his kid, obviously, as you would. Like, I wouldn't want to leave that fucking area until I find my kid.
I would build a cabin and stay there forever.
Right, and so now he's like in full like panic mode. He can't think of what to do. The park rangers are like, we got this, relax. We got people on the job. Don't worry about it. And so he's like just fraught with worry to the point where he goes and grabs a shovel and goes and digs up, uproots the bush that Dennis was hiding behind, just to try and find anything,
Yeah, like
obviously doesn't find anything.
Right, like there's a cave system or something below or something going on.
Yeah, like maybe he fell, I don't know. So 2 days pass, and 1,400 people search party starts looking. They cannot
1,400?
1,400.
Wow.
They cannot find a trace of this kid. FBI's called in to monitor the situation, which is not unheard of. Like if it's a missing child, FBI will come in.
I've heard that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're monitoring the case. 5 days after that, Green Berets show up. like a whole
Green
platoon
Berets?
of Green Berets.
show up.
Yeah.
What?
So they pull up in their truck, and they want no assistance from the park management. They're on their own radio channel, and they just set off, and they're only working at night, mainly working at night.
Whoa.
Going out into the forest and doing whatever they're doing.
Wait, was it a search and rescue team, Green Beret kind of thing? And they're
No, it was like full-on
like guys with guns coming in.
Guys with guns. Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Like, it's a threat then. Okay, go on.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they come in. No one, and this was what Politis was trying to get Freedom of Information Act to see who brought him in, who asked him to come in, and what were they doing out there. So not only did he, he didn't get any response. There was not a denial of like, no, we can't give you that. They just ignored it, which is really weird with FOIA requests.
Whoa.
Completely ignore it. Any requests for Freedom of Information Act. So at this point, Mr. Key gets really upset that like this information doesn't seem to be like everything he's read in the papers and everything. It doesn't seem like anyone took notice of what he said. So he goes to the media now and goes to a reporter and says, look, this is what I saw. This crazy, big, hairy, shaggy-looking man and a huge scream, and it was round about the same time, and they measured, looked on a map and looked. It was, when Dennis went missing, there was ample time for whatever this was to make it back to where they were. Mm-hmm. So he was like, this should be like part of the investigation, right? So the journalist writes a story about it in the paper, but Mr. Key notices that he leaves off a couple of very important pieces. And we'll get to that in a second.
Okay. But
so he writes this, story and like doesn't really make a connection, and the reporter asks for a statement from the park rangers and says, "Hey, why didn't you make this connection?" And the park rangers just deny it and say, "Look, the timing is impossible. There's no way that that he could have made it over there. It's just completely unrelated events."
Yeah,
that was their official statement.
Well, this speaks of the cover-up of Missing 411. The park rangers know something that, and they're holding it back.
Yeah. So Mr. Martin, Dennis's father, finally sees this information come out in this news story, and he is fucking irate at this point.
Oh yeah, hell yeah!
Why didn't you fucking tell me about this? Man. This is a huge deal. Park rangers again. Look, completely unrelated. This was 5 miles away from where you were. There's no way these things are related. So Dennis's father goes back, and they do the calculation. They run. He walks from where Dennis went missing to where these Key family saw this thing. Mm-hmm. Plenty of time to get there. It lines up perfectly with the timing. Okay. He's like, what the fuck? Something's not right here. When Dennis went missing, it was June. So we're in August now. And the Green Berets finally get out of the area. The search is cut off the next month in September. And that's it. Dennis is missing now. He's gone, presumed dead. That's it. Search is called off.
Wow.
40 years later, Politis starts his missing 411 investigations. He goes to...
he's a police officer.
Ex-police officer, yeah.
Officer.
Yeah, check out David Politis' stuff. Really cool stuff.
He wrote a series of books about missing people in the country and national parks.
Right, yeah. Ex-police officer. So he's looking into this case. He basically goes up to the Martin's door 40 years later, knocks on their door, explains what he's looking for, and Dennis's father steps outside and has basically said, "Look, this basically just ruined our lives. We don't want to talk about it anymore. We're done talking about it." So, Politis pleads with him, "Look, I think I know more about this case than anyone else. I'm trying to find out what happens to these people who go missing. Can you give me 15 minutes? Dennis's father agrees. And then he starts breaking down everything that he found out consequently after the fact in 40 years.
Wow.
So he feels, Dennis Martin's father feels that they were constantly lied to the whole way and just kind of held back, and there was a huge cover-up going on. Something was happening they weren't being told about. So Mr. Martin, Dennis's father, talks to the reporter not long after the fact that after the reporter broke the story about the Key family seeing this thing in the forest. Big hairy man screams. What the reporter told him he left out was that the family saw that this thing was also carrying something on its back.
Oh no.
And they thought it might have been like a sack of something in a sack. It was pretty big. And he was like, and he just went like cold. He just like fucking got it.
Oh my God.
How could you leave this out? How could you not tell him? And he just,
he
was like to the reporter, why did you leave this out of the story? And basically the reporter told him that, oh, no one would have believed him. Like it was just like this stupid throwaway line. And it was just, again pointing to this seemingly...
that might not be cover-up, though. That might just be like self-defenders of the status quo, scared what people think if you say something really bizarre.
Yeah, that's what...
but then the Green Berets showed up, though, so somebody knew that something crazy was going on.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's all there.
So, whether the reporter says, I didn't want them to think I was crazy, still, I mean, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, somebody must have scared the reporter. Like, you shouldn't print that. People are going to think you're crazy. You're never going to have it.
Yeah, I think, the story was, weird enough, and they were like, let's not put that in. People think we're just like a tabloid kind of thing. So they left it out. But obviously a huge piece of this story. So another thing Mr. Martin tells Politis is the resident FBI guy who was assigned to the case, and Politis knew who it was because he'd done a number of the cases in the area. Politis said, Mr. Martin said to him, do you know about other missing people in this area? And Politis is like, do I know about other missing people? Listen to this. So
I have a book and a documentary there.
Yeah, so he started listing all these things. He's like, do you know who the FBI agent who was assigned to the case? Yeah, I know the guy. I don't know him personally, but I know who he is. Mr. Martin says, do you know what happened to him? Politis is like, no, I hadn't really followed him at all. And he said he committed suicide. Not long after this kind of all went down.
Or did he?
Well, yeah. I have more. So, cut to late last year. As I was looking at this, it seems that some guy in the area had, I was looking up YouTube videos and stuff, trying to remember what the story was. And this guy, his name is, on YouTube, if you check him out, his name's South Force 10. South Force 10.
Okay.
He has this video that it caught my eye, obviously. It says, Dennis Martin case solved. And I'm like, all right.
Good YouTube title.
Let's hear this guy out.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And so this guy's from the area around the Smoky Mountains there. Knows the area really well where Dennis went missing. And talks with a really amazing Tennessee twang. I love listening to it. Anyway, so he basically says, man, the story he tells is fucking crazy. So he's like, his family's lived in the area for generations, grandfathers, great-grandfathers. He said when the government set up the Smoky Mountains as a national park back in, I think it was 1935, when it was announced that there was going to be national park. A few years after that, local law enforcement, I don't know, some sort of governmental group came into some of the local hunters, asked them to put a posse together and start going into the forest and hunting down what they called wild men.
Whoa.
Right?
No, I've never heard this before.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is what another thing that Politis said was he talked to one of the original search and rescue people in Dennis Martin's case. He was just a young fella at the time, but now he's like the head of search and rescue in the area. He said, in confidence to Politis, he believes that Dennis was taken. And he also mentioned these wild men in the forest. He says they
not
were
rednecks. When we say wild men, what are we saying? We're saying Bigfoot?
So there's a bit of conjecture on this. So what Politis got from this search and rescue guy was that basically a wild group of people, very inbred, hill